Welcome to Divine Dialogue, heard on Rockland World Radio every other Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And now the hosts of Divine Dialogue, Lisa Howard, Teresa Winicky, and Jan Sheehan.
So I'm looking for those to disappear.
Right. Well, a couple more days of this and it will.
Not in my neighborhood. A couple won't do it. But we're looking. It's there. I can see grass on one part of my backyard. So.
But it's now that time of year when, as it melts, you can smell new growth.
Yes, absolutely.
And I can hear the birds. Maybe they were there all along, but now I can really hear them.
Yeah. Yes. Good point.
They're happy too.
So that really starts us off on kind of the topic that we were talking about last time, about when you say new growth. We always try to talk about new growth and how to, really it starts in our self-confidence and really a formula of how to get from where you are to where you want to go. There are some key factors in our development and our desires and our learning and our capacities to get to the next level of our life. And self-confidence is a key to anything, to growth, to knowing where we are and where we want to go. So, did you want to talk a little bit about self-confidence?
Well, I think in general, just the first question, I wonder how many people have the same understanding of what self-confidence is. A big key to understanding any of the work we do, whether it's one of the REACH workshops or any of the other work that all three of us have been involved in over the years. To have a common understanding of what we're speaking about when we're talking about self-confidence. It's the belief in yourself and the understanding that you are capable of and can achieve. But if you were to look up the Webster Dictionary for what self-confidence is, they would give you at least 4 different definitions of self-confidence. In this case, for the sake of a workshop or the sake of pursuing our resolutions, hence our workshop is Resolution Success 2014, we're in week 4 of our 8-week workshop. And the first 3 weeks were dedicated to understanding who is really operating us, who is breathing us, and recognizing your oneness with a universe that works in scientific fact and principle. It doesn't negate or debate. It doesn't know Jan from Lisa, from Teresa. It knows us all as one, and it knows as we know. So self-confidence in that regard is as much a piece of faith as it is in our own ability to move forward, right? If we make a commitment, if we give ourselves a commitment, we sign on the dotted line and say that we're going to do this every day because we think that doing A, B, and C is going to get us to D. So we make good on our agreement by following the rules, but then you still have to trust in something higher than ourselves operating with us. So the self-confidence, in other words, a short version for what I'm trying to say is that I've often heard people say that they believe in God, but they don't believe in themselves. And so obviously from a science of mind perspective and the education that we've had, to not believe in yourself is to not believe in God, because we know that God and each of us are one. There is oneness. So when you think of whatever your definition for a supreme being is, God, universal intelligence, the cosmos, whatever you choose to call it, infinite intelligence, know that there is something operating, and if you are adhering to its rules and operating within the confines of any one of the laws of success or the law of prosperity, there's your self-confidence. You believe in a higher power, you understand how it works, you follow through with your commitment, and you are met with success. It doesn't deviate, right? So I've been doing a lot of work the last 2 weeks around self-confidence, probably because the work that we are reading, the material, the curriculum, and so on, is designed to inspire something within us, a new awareness of who we are. So many people who have in the past set resolutions, and according to the statistics that you and I explored before we created this workshop, was that it was an alarming 18% success rate. So what are the other 82 lacking? Now, for purposes of clarifying what it is we do on Divine Dialogue, we are a solution-based platform. So we don't investigate why the 82 failed, we investigate why the 18 succeeded. And so concentrating and putting your attention on what you want as opposed to what you don't want is you working with your creative power to ensure that this new paradigm of yourself has been developed, right? So we mentioned auto-suggestion last week and what that. But I just wanted to bring that to the forefront because I think self-confidence, although in the 12 success principles, they don't define self-confidence. It's not clearly called out. They don't differentiate from self-confidence versus faith. Yet faith in who, in what, to me, is where your self-confidence would come from. So when our self-confidence, and any individual, it may wax and wane at certain times. Obviously, if you're venturing into a new career, then you've never done this type of work, then maybe you're lacking a little bit in self-confidence because you haven't experienced this before. But if you practice a set of principles and you are met with challenges, you then have to rely on your faith. So to me, where faith and self-confidence merge together is really recognizing that you're one with a creative entity, and that creative entity is our subconscious. Do you follow me?
Yeah. So Jan, for you, for self-confidence for you, you are an accomplished woman. You've done many things in your life.
Yes.
You've been many places. Mm-hmm. So where does your self-confidence come from?
You know, it's funny because in Reach 1 or 2, I kind of came to the conclusion that, like anybody else, and I say this almost universally, most people have self-doubt in some area of their life. So because I wanted to very much find that place of, okay, where do you really feel good about yourself? I started thinking about the various aspects of my life. And, you know, being able to pinpoint one area where I absolutely know I have confidence about what I do for work, which is to me not work, because I really love it and I feel confident about it. And then go from there. So where's my building block? So that's where I found it. You know, I was very fortunate to have a really wonderful dad. And he walked with confidence. And he always said it came from his upbringing. You know, he grew up in a metropolitan area, and like a lot of immigrant kids, I mean, his first generation, you know, he kind of, in the summertime, they sent him away to a fresh air camp. Only it wasn't fresh air camp. It was something called the Church of All Nations. And that's where he got his values, he really felt. Even though he participated in his family's cultural church, he felt that he got his real strong values from that upbringing. And that's where you get confidence. You get confidence from where your values come from, I think. But sometimes as we go through life and we get battered by this, that, or the other, somebody tells you you're not good enough, somebody says, you know, that particular thing you did wasn't right, or, you know, the various institutional ways that people, children in particular, get kind of battered down. So at some point in your life, if you're examining your life, you get, where does it come from? Where do I feel good about myself? Where do I absolutely feel good? And, you know, for the last 20 years, I've done a particular kind of work, and that's, I realized that it, you know, no ifs, ands, or buts. You ask me, do I do good work? Yes, darn right. No problem. So then I take that and I say, well, how can I build on this and really find my self-confidence? And I've always presented myself as somebody with confidence. But when you start examining it, then you start looking at places where, maybe not.
Right.
So, but it's good. I mean, having the tool of a workshop, or having the tool of a spiritual practice, or, you know, you name it. For many people, it's various different things. But you put those things together and then you do develop confidence because you examine it, you bring your thoughts, as we've been talking a lot about, where do you focus your thoughts? Do you want to live a life where you are confident and then can build on that and have a better life? Or do you just want to go through life, I'll let it happen to me. Won't work.
I think a lot of people don't know that if they look at their life, they and really evaluate and really take a step back and really see into their life, that the way we do one thing is the way we do all things. So if we find that we don't have self-confidence either in being a parent, always second-guessing yourself, not that you don't, because a lot of people do second-guess themselves, you never hoping that you're doing the right thing, but self-confidence in your job, self-confidence in a relationship, self-confidence in, in being healthy, that, but the way we do one thing is usually the way we do everything. And it was interesting, my son the other day, who's 19, we were having a discussion, and I was telling him about the parenting program that I do and the work that I do with parents and around families. And he's like, well, doesn't every parent have confidence and self-confidence? And I'm like, why do you say that? Well, you have to have confidence to raise a child because you want to teach them things. You want to give them values. I was like thinking, well, I've never heard my son talk like this.
No, but you've clearly done a beautiful job.
Well, thank you. And I know he has had practice. So the way you develop self-confidence or help your child develop self-confidence is to allow them to try things, to not be afraid to fail, that to know that it's okay to try things out. That's
right.
what life is about, to try things out. And then build your either aptitude or skill level or something for something that you really would love to do.
Yeah, but it's also true that you're modeling for them.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
We are always modeling for whoever witnesses
Yes.
what we're doing or being.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm hoping. So when you have confidence in one area, he was always a top athlete. He was a good student. He was outgoing. He was a social guy. So he had some challenges last year with a concussion and a year and a half, and he really lost himself in that mess that was going on, the evolution of that and the fulfillment of that, and he is on the other side of that. And to see him go from being self-confident to sitting on a couch for a year to getting back into life because he kept making himself go out there and making himself do things, and he was applying everything he learned from being a top athlete, all those skills he learned about being a team player and having determination and having a desire and having faith that it was going to work out. I asked him once, when you go out there to hit the ball, he really was great at football and baseball. When you go out there to hit that ball, do you stand at the plate waiting
guessing if you're going to hit it?
Waiting for the pitcher to throw it and say, do you think I'm going to hit it
I
this
hope I
time?
get this.
I hope I get this. He goes, no, who thinks like that? You got to be out there. You got to know that you're going to hit that ball and you're going to, I'm like, all right, well, that's where you could see how he's applied his skill and talent from on the field to now in life being, out of the playing arena of a sport to building his life, trying to participate, trying things out, trying whatever's next, and, continue to be a player out there and everything. So the way you do one thing can be applied to the way you do everything in your life. So if you do have the model, or you do have some, all these books that are out there, self-empowerment, self-development, all the things that are out there, they are only as good as someone used to call them, their shelf help. So if you don't ever take them off the shelf and read them, or go past the first 5 pages, or really dive deep into creating some persistence in your life and getting to a certain point in your life, that's where all of that self-confidence starts to build, when you allow a child to pour their own milk, or to allow them to fall down when they can't get, and just do that and not always be there to catch them.
Right.
But so they could try it, figure it out, and say, next, all right, feedback, more feedback, the feedback loop that you create. I think that's your whole life, right? I'm sure
Yes, I
you've
think so.
taken the skills you've done well in one, maybe your career in your life or in relationships, and then started to, okay, that worked or didn't work, and how am I going to do it the next step, the next profession, the next relationship.
And so I think it's pretty cool at the moment. I was just thinking about how fortunate the children in our life are, regardless of how old they are. You have a grown daughter, I have a grown daughter, your kids are grown. And so how fortunate they are, because no matter when we became conscious of this journey that we're on, we are creating for them a foundation that will support them. So where do you go? What about the folks that are 30, 40, and 50, and 60 that haven't had that? So how do you start working on building one's self-confidence when you haven't had a good role model, or you're not being supported right now by someone who is doing their own inner work, right? Where does self-confidence come from? So that's a big question. How do you? For us as teachers and facilitators, we can tell you that you take a workshop and you start applying the principles and you show up. Coach Selby talked about on his website a couple weeks ago, he talked about, they know they could get a player to show up for the game, but would they show up for practice? So, before the show started and we were briefly touching on the subject, you had talked about self-sabotage. I was reading earlier today in Spiritual Liberation, Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith's Spiritual Liberation, chapter 13, page 175. He shares a story about identity theft, and apparently at one time, not all that long ago, probably about 7 years ago, he actually had he experienced a situation with identity theft, and his emails were being forwarded to Kenya somewhere. And he used this experience, and he writes a beautiful reflection on how he related the spiritual identity crisis that most of humanity, or a large portion of it anyway, today struggles with, hence why reality shows are running rampant. Because now this is not Dr. Beckwith speaking, this is me speaking. In my opinion, the reason reality shows are running rampant is because people have become so either complacent or numb, I want to say, to their own individual lives that the shock and awe value of watching a reality show is the only thing that inspires or stirs something. That they have lost their creative genius or misplaced it. So they view their lives as wonderful when you look at a dysfunctional family on a reality show. And so I will share this piece with you. This makes perfect sense. It goes hand in hand with what you said. I was raised by a tyrant, I tell you. He was a raging alcoholic. There was a lot of good in my father, but it was very hard to see. Most of the time he ruled the house. There were 7 of us at that time. We later became 9, but there were 7. And he was a drill sergeant. And you lived in fear. You greatly lived in fear. Even when he was sober, you did. And when he was intoxicated, sometimes you feared for your life. So that took place for a good solid 12 years. That was the environment for the most part. So I had my mom trying to make things nicer, and my dad ruled the roost the only way he knew how. And when you look back on what he learned. So the reason I'm sharing this is because Samantha and I have come, my daughter Samantha and I have come a long way in our relationship and how we communicate and so on. But mainly, that's not just because of the work that I've done, she and I together in improving our communication, but it was in me doing my work. Mm-hmm. And I was comparing myself, and the reason I couldn't, and she and I struggled for quite a while, I couldn't understand why she thought that I was too tough a mom. And that's because I was comparing myself to my father. So that comparison thing can be very tricky. It really can take a toll on your self-confidence when you're looking for the outside world and society to tell you whether you're beautiful, successful, or whether you're hip or cool or whatever it is that floats your boat, okay? By the same token, we can fool ourselves by having role models that were less than they should have been. And so any improvement kids us into thinking that we've fallen into this role and we're doing a really great job. Yes, I was doing a better job than my father did, but I wasn't doing nearly the job I should have. Not when it came to communication, and they joke in my family about how strict I am and how much like Daddy I am, or was. And I was. And I understand now through a lot of that why he had to rule the way he did, because he was in fear. He had no idea. It was fear that that motivated that. So when I think about all of those things, not only does it make room for me to forgive my father for his how he showed up as a parent. I don't think anybody really wants to be a lousy parent. I think everyone wants to do the best they can. People don't grow up in this world and say, oh, I want to be a drug addict or I want to be an alcoholic. These things happen to them for whatever reason. And then we get to take a look at our lives and own it and decide that we're going to clean it up. So, but in the reflection of it, aside from being able to give my father a pass and say, you know what, Dad, I know you did the best you could with the tools that he had been given. So now we have better tools now. Our children, your son, to hear that must have been such a rewarding experience, Teresa, to hear your son repeat those words to you. So, and every now and then when Samantha will repeat something that I have said over and over again, and I swear it went through one ear and out the other, but then I'll hear her repeating it to somebody else, and I'm like, yes, it made it in. But then that goes right back to what you said about the reading and the steps we take in the determination, the resolve, the faith, and doing the work and showing up every day. Ernest Holmes would say, you can read and read and read, but don't be a sponge. We're not just here to absorb.
That's
We're here to
true.
go out in the world.
That's true.
And try this out, experiment with it. And so, but how do you experiment unless the fear is gone, right? So self-confidence to me is so much more of an intricate component. For me, I'm sure Napoleon Hill would probably have a different, according to the work that we're doing, Napoleon Hill thought that having a definite major purpose in life was the first thing that you needed in order to achieve success, or whatever it is that you call success. And of course, I'm not here to debate Napoleon Hill. I happen to love his work. But then I'm thinking to myself, in order to do any of that, there has to be a belief in yourself, a belief in something.
Well, I think it could be a catch-22. I think there's this desire trying to come through you. And it's for you to accept or decline to bring this desire forth, to bring the next evolution of yourself forth. And with that desire, you either jump in and say, of course I'm in, I'm going to do this in my life, or you say, oh, I don't know if I can.
Well, there has to be a willingness.
Right,
Willingness
so-
to, like the title of the book says, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Right.
There has to be a willingness to put yourself out there, to
Yeah.
risk.
And it starts with the desire. And that's what it does, because that's what's going to get
True.
you to the next thing. Because we could be very comfortable and not desire. I mean, we could desire a new car or a new relationship, but if we're not willing to get off the couch or whatever, get out of our regular, that desire you'll just keep pushing that back down until you actually take a step in the direction and see how it blossoms then.
Yeah, I mean, there is a theory, and really it comes from traditional Chinese medicine, that people have to be in enough pain to make a choice, a change. And that doesn't mean physical pain, of course. We all know that you can be in, discomfort in relationship, so it feels like pain. You can be in discomfort about your spiritual life. It's not adequate. It's not fulfilling. It's, people look, many of us, many years before we find something that's comfortable. We have to be uncomfortable enough, or in pain enough, or just want something badly enough, as you say, desire.
Right.
So you take some action.
Yeah, to
To-
take
to
the
actually
action.
then
What
go-
is it that gets you to take action? You're just really unhappy with where you are.
You could either, as
You
Mary
want more, you
Right.
want something.
Morrissey says, you're either pushed by pain or pulled by a vision. You choose.
Pain or passion?
Yeah, so 85% I would say, or let's go with 82% of people need to be pushed by the pain to then start taking action.
Right. But then that 82%, so if it's pain or discomfort with their life, dissatisfaction we'll call it, right?
Yeah.
Emma Curtis Hopkins, that
Uncomfortable.
the only thing we all share in common is that we all want satisfaction. What satisfaction looks like differs, but we all want satisfaction. So if we are unsatisfied with our current life situation, then how does it go? Is it just pain? If it's pain that's pushing you, where do you lean? Where do you look? What support do you reach for? Because it can't just be pain. There has to be something inside of you that's telling you that you can believe in yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not doing a good job explaining it right now.
You could have the pain. I mean, you could believe in yourself up to you believe in yourself enough until the level that you are. And when you want something more than where you are, there's got to be another level of belief in yourself, something that's going to spur you on to something bigger than you. Maybe it's your purpose.
The classic answer in psychotherapy is that people go through therapy or therapeutic situations and they unpeel an onion. And where they're at when they start is maybe just at the surface of the onion. And as people go deeper and want more, and you know that once people experience certain things in their lives, they may have a taste for something because of that. You live a certain life for a while, and then you say, this is not satisfying. I've been with this guy, girl, children, whatever. This is not giving me what I thought I wanted. And then maybe you stop and you think about it, and you make an adjustment. Or it also depends on the stage of your life. In my 20s, I thought one thing, and now in my almost 70s, I think much differently. It's partly stage of your life. It's partly where you're going with your life, how deep you want to dive. I think that expression is a very good one. Some people seem to live on the surface of their lives and not wanting to judge them.
Right.
That's where they are at the moment. If they're meant to go further or they want to go further, they will, but maybe it's just not their time to do that. We've seen lots of people who get very caught up in the minutia of the life because they've got 6 kids under 6, or whatever the circumstances. If I had 6 children under 6, maybe you'd put me in a funny farm.
Right.
Absolutely.
Let's be honest.
Yes.
For some people, it's 1 child under 6.
Right.
It all depends upon where you are and is your health good? Can I cope with that? Is my mental health good? Is my spiritual health good? All these things are really factors to all of what we're talking about, to both developing the self-confidence and using the self-confidence, because it's one thing to get to a place, I got self-confidence. Okay, well, I'm going to sit on the couch with it? You're going to go take the leap.
Right.
So let me just say, if you'd like to join in the conversation, please call us at 845-353-2910. There is a chat room on Rockland World Radio that is working. It wasn't working for a while, but if you're on rocklandworldradio.com, on the left corner, you'll see chat room. Just click on there and you could chat online with us. Just put your name in and type away.
So to what you were saying, that entire theory was the foundation for, it was one of the first papers I had to write on Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And he has that defined as a pyramid, and that God, he uses the word God very freely, at the top of the pyramid. And your basic life, your survival, your needs for survival are at the bottom. And until people reach that level where their basic needs, until they've exceeded those basic needs, only then can they pursue a deeper understanding of themselves. Because to your point right now, if they've got 6 kids and they're just trying to pay their mortgage and get through life and so on, I think more than anything, I want to encourage people to look at, to take a look at disenchantment just for one moment, and to look at it for the gift that it is. Because disenchantment, the gift in disenchantment is that there is something that seeks more. And whether you recognize that as a higher power or not, if you are unhappy with your life, make no mistake, it's a calling for you to dig deeper. Not to necessarily work harder or find a different job, but to do your work and find out what your role in that disenchantment is. And more often than not, we have seen that it is, it's a set of beliefs that have been cultivated through years of experience, years of failure, or what we have fed into our minds. And that's our parents telling us whether we were good enough or not good enough. And this isn't an opportunity to bash the parents, If we were talking about child rearing right now, then of course I would say that the parents, it's your responsibility to give your children all the tools you can. But so many of the people who have children today they don't know that they don't have the tools. They're going through life according to what society has called a standard. And so I think it's interesting that last week on Good Morning America, they did a poll. Dr. Dan, I think his name is Dr. Dan. I know it's Dan. The topic came up of that they were thinking about passing a bill that said that expecting parents would be mandated to take 4 training courses, child rearing training courses. And so, of course, the anchor men and women started to debate with one another what their opinions were and so on. And the minute the mandatory came into play, you know, you could see that everyone sat up, and so, because mandatory is, all right, what are you going to make me do, right? But really, the poll was amazing, because he does at the end of each segment, he'll do, you know, the viewers, they polled, I don't know how many people they polled, but they give you the percentage. And so they were betting that the percentage of the viewing public would go against that. It was 65%
Against.
for it.
For a mandatory.
For a mandatory. And the
But that was the
conversation.
grandparents calling it.
But I thought that was very, very interesting, because, like I said, once the word mandatory came up, everyone's shoulders went back and their chest extended, because they're immediately ready for resistance.
Well, my automatic question was, who's got the right answer?
Yeah.
You know, when it's mandatory, like, then it's like, what's the curriculum? You get into the schools, the core curriculum crap that's going on, you know, in all the school districts now. And I mean, who's going to say what's
Teaching to the
mandatory?
test.
Is it the mandatory being, you know, the medical part of it, the mandatory, like, how do you say what's mandatory? You know, we all might have different.
Well, it was initially,
requirements.
I think it was their topic was to educate children on anger management, bullying, you know, the different topics that are very popular in the media today, the things that
Right.
you hear on the news, and the terrible things that go on with bullying, cyberbullying, and actually physically bullying. So it was about, I think it was emotional stability more than anything. And so obviously there would be a panel, I don't know, I just thought it was interesting that 65%. To me, that means that the majority of the world is aware that we need to give our children more than they currently have. So I thought that was very refreshing. I was inspired by that poll. Yet I thought it was interesting that I noticed the word mandatory had everybody sitting up. And so I think it was actually, your husband once said this to me. I can't remember his exact words, but when I was working with John on something for I Choose a Charity, and he used the statement, you know, if you just remove the defensiveness out of it, because we were reviewing something, if you take the defensiveness out of it and you just look at it for what it's there to teach you. I wish I could remember his exact
Right.
words, but I can hear them in my head, you know. And so I think, whole case in point, when we're talking about self-esteem and self-confidence, because if you are working on self-esteem, if you have high self-esteem, you usually have self-confidence. They're kind of
Right.
twins,
Yeah.
right? Self-confidence and self-esteem. If you lack in self-confidence, you usually lack in self-esteem. You don't know your value, or it has been minimized by society or experience or role models. So the point I want to make is that when we are comparing ourselves, it's such, you know, it's such a very fine line. You can compare yourself to someone who is not living to a standard that you desire to be, and so you can be fooled in thinking that you are progressing because you're doing better than someone that you know. Hence, when I look at my role modeling as a parent years ago, I have to say my daughter's very happy that was years ago, in comparison to now. Or I can set my standards on someone else or an icon, someone that I truly admire for their achievements or in the way they conduct themselves, their standards, their morals, and their values. And if I'm not careful there, then I will never be what they are. And so, you know, it's a self-sabotaging. You'll never measure up to them because you see you see them as being separate and unapproachable. So, so no matter what information I read this week, you know, this was the 10 Commandments for Happiness and Success, and I found this online. And of course, the first one was don't compare yourself to others. The trick, you know, it is a very, very deceitful and can be potentially harmful to you for the reasons I just explained.
Well, self-confidence, I think of a couple of children that I know that there's a big age gap between the youngest and the oldest. There's like 7 years. And I think the youngest his self-confidence is so much lower than the others in the family because he was always trying to operate at their level, but being 7 years younger. And so I think he always questioned
Whether
his
he could ever,
abilities,
yeah.
whether he could do it, why couldn't he do it? He's, I'm around these people, in his own little mind, he was thinking, well, they do it so much better, I could never be that good, or I could,
Right.
why can't I be that good? And I think that really starts way back, I think, from what I've learned about all the work that we're doing in the coaching world and the studying of development, that most of our assessments about who we are, judgments about who we are, that all happened under the age of 7, before the age of reason, when we had no ability to question any of our thinking. We didn't even know we were thinking. We just took it in like
Right.
a sponge.
Exactly.
So we are operating out of a young mind in an old body, or older body. So a lot of the stuff is what they say, we're wired for greatness and programmed to fail, because we don't know what's going on into our minds when we were young, or now we could see it looking back of our parents were that way, no wonder I have this tendency to do
Right.
blah blah blah. But so it starts. But
Right. Joel Olstein was talking about DNA this past Sunday too, and I thought his talk was pretty interesting on DNA. And yes, you can share my mother's eyes and my father's curly hair and my father's height, but you don't have to. So the genetic DNA will tell you what color hair you're going to have and what color your eyes will be, but there is no pre-designed disposition. There is a lot of belief that if you are an alcoholic, if you were raised by alcoholic parents, that there is a probability that the odds increase that you could suffer from alcoholism yourself if you were. But his point was that you don't have to be a part of that statistic.
absolutely.
And so I go back again that when we look at the disenchantment in our life, if we're feeling disenchanted, it's truly a gift, because it is a beautiful opportunity to, one, recognize why this disenchantment is here and what it is you're hoping to get to. And it has nothing to do with that you were genetically predisposed to failure.
Right, because if you could think of the way that you would like it to be, you can get there.
You've already demonstrated that you have the ability to get there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So then we would go to auto-suggestion, which is what we're going to start working on in the next week or so, right, for our
Right.
class, auto-suggestion. So I would love it for you to explain to our viewers what the benefits of auto-suggestion.
The benefits of auto-suggestion. Well, auto-suggestion is what we're doing every moment of our day, not knowing it. It's the
autopilot.
autopilot talk that we we're saying internally all the time. And I remember a long time ago, I said to my husband, if you sit in silence for a while, you get a comfortable silence, right? So a long time ago, just tell me what's going through your mind. Just tell me what's whirring through there as we're sitting there not talking. And as I said that, he looked and laughed at me. He was like, you really want to know what's going on, going through here, all those thoughts that are going through, all those thousands of thoughts that go through? Yeah, I really want to know. So, and then as I stopped to really be aware of the thoughts that were going through my mind at the time, I'm like, I don't know if I want to say that out loud, or, I don't know, could I possibly do that? So the auto-suggestion is positive or negative of what's going on, the internal dialogue that we have at all times going through. Can I look at that person, look at me, the judgment, the assessment. And the way to move into the place of more self-confidence, or getting to the place that you want to go to, is to have that positive auto-suggestion. I am a person of affluence. I am a person of increase. I am smart. I am kind. I am gentle. I am. And that auto-suggestion is about keep telling yourself all the time who you really are.
Right, and out loud.
Yes.
It is
And-
important
right.
that it be out loud.
Yes. And then to have the out loudness be always the internal one that's going on in moving you forward, the complementary, the powerhouse that you are internally, wired for greatness, like your smartphone, wired. These phones can only do what it does because of the genius that programmed it. And that genius resides in all of us. So if we remember that and remember to tell ourselves that all the time, how powerful we are, what we can do, that auto-suggestion will then show up in the actions that we'll take and the results that we get in our life. Because the results in our life have everything to do with the thought that we're thinking at the moment. That's where all the results start.
Right. And so I wonder, how would we inspire or encourage callers or viewers, potential viewers, to take an assessment, do an assessment of where they're at, how they're feeling about their life, about themselves, and what will it take? Will it take pain to push them? Or will they allow their passion to come out?
So you take an assessment of your life, you sit down and you just, or stand up or walk or run or whatever you're doing, and say, is this what I would have wanted
Right.
for my life?
Is it this or better?
Is
You
it
know,
this or
when you
better?
become complacent with this, or believe in better.
Better.
And if there's better, pursue it.
Yeah, well, I think it also goes to something we talk about a lot. It requires stopping and having at least some time of silence with yourself. You know, and
reflection,
you know,
absolutely.
we're often talking to people about doing meditation and taking the moment or visualization, and people, oh, I don't have time for that. And I've been through that. But I commuted to New York City for 33 years, something like that, most of 33 years. And I used to meditate in my car. People say, you can't meditate in your car while you're driving in traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can.
It beats the alternative.
Yeah.
You know, getting angry at that guy because he cut you off. You know, go in peace, brother.
You can meditate with your eyes open.
I went through a divorce. It was, not a happy time in my life. And, I got those emotions out while I was driving my car. But, not in the way that most people think. But you can stop and have quiet time. If you shut off the radio or whatever, and have the radio on. But, you don't need a particular setting to do what I call meditation. You just need a going inward.
Yep.
Right.
And the willingness to
And the willingness,
stop.
yeah. Well, I assume, I think I'm safe in making this assumption, that people who might be listening might be inclined to listen and think about the topics that we've been discussing and how they can get to a better place for themselves. And that's what it's all about. We're all trying to get to
Right.
a better place for ourselves, a more balanced place, a calmer place, a place where we have more affluence of health and wealth and relationship. Whatever it is people are seeking, it's not going to be found in the chaos.
Right. A richer, fuller life, whatever that looks like. And richer doesn't necessarily mean dollars, just a richer life where you can't wait to get out of bed, because you're looking forward to it. So I encourage our viewers, the viewers tonight or the viewers that will view this show in the weeks to come. You can visit any one of us on thisorbetter.com and email Jan, Teresa, or myself. Check out the contact information, or even look at the events that we have planned and workshops. Whatever it is, I encourage you to take a look, take that time, that still time that Jan just talked about, and just decide whether you are okay with this or if better is something that you'd like to consider. And if so, I encourage you to reach for us at thisorbetter.com. I would like to say thank you. I think our show is coming to an end. It's been a wonderful conversation. And self-confidence is something that is cultivated. You're not born with self-confidence. You cultivate it. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at what their level of self-confidence is, wherever you are in this world. Have a wonderful week, and we look forward to seeing you on March 24th. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. So did we have anybody in the chat?
I'm independent. You know it. You love it. You can't live without it. Rockland World Radio.